Welcome to Nightmare Fuel Stories. The cold bit into my skin as I stepped out of my truck. The wind up here was relentless, cutting through my heavy jacket like it was made of paper. I pulled my collar tighter around my neck and stared up at the abandoned radio tower that loomed above me, its metal frame silhouetted against the fading afternoon light. The structure was a skeletal giant, reaching nearly 300 feet into the sky, rusted and forgotten on this remote hilltop in northern Montana. My name is Daniel Mercer. I'm a telecommunications engineer with 20 years of experience, and I've been sent to assess this decommissioned tower before the scheduled demolition next month. Standard procedure: check the structural integrity, document any environmental concerns, and make sure there weren't any unexpected issues that might complicate the teardown. Simple. What wasn't simple was the report that had landed on my desk 3 days ago, electromagnetic readings from this tower that shouldn't exist. The Blackrock radio tower had been officially decommissioned in 1997, its power cut, equipment removed, and transmitters dismantled. Yet somehow, according to the preliminary survey, it was still broadcasting. I grabbed my equipment bag from the passenger seat and locked the truck. The dirt access road I'd followed ended here in a small clearing. Beyond my vehicle, there was nothing but dense pine forest stretching for miles in every direction. Cell service had disappeared about 20 minutes back, which wasn't surprising. This tower had been built in the 1950s specifically because of the area's isolation, a Cold War relic designed to maintain communications in the event of nuclear attack. The chain-link fence surrounding the base of the tower had long since fallen into disrepair. Large sections had collapsed entirely, making the no trespassing signs seem almost laughable. I ducked through a gap and approached the small concrete building at the tower's base. This would have housed the transmission equipment back when the station was operational. The metal door was secured with a heavy padlock, but I had the key provided by the property management company. It took some jiggling. The mechanism was stiff with rust and disuse, but eventually it turned with a harsh click. The door groaned as I pushed it open, revealing darkness beyond. The air inside was stale and heavy with the smell of mildew and corroded metal. I flicked on my flashlight, its beam cutting through the gloom to reveal a room stripped of almost everything useful. Empty metal racks lined the walls where equipment had once been mounted. Cables hung from the ceiling like dead vines. The concrete floor was stained with dark patches of what I assumed was old motor oil or transmission fluid. I set my bag down and took out my EMF meter. If there were any active electrical systems, this would detect them. According to the demolition company's survey, they'd picked up significant electromagnetic activity from this location, strong enough to register on equipment from nearly a mile away. That shouldn't be possible, not from a tower that had been dead for over 25 years. The meter remained quiet as I moved around the room. Nothing, just as I expected. I need to check the actual tower structure, but first I wanted to examine the rest of the building. There was a door at the back that presumably led to additional rooms. This second door wasn't locked. Beyond it was a narrow hallway with 2 more doors, one on each side. The first opened to reveal what had once been a small break room. A metal table was bolted to the floor in the center, surrounded by the remains of what had once been chairs. A countertop ran along one wall with empty spaces where appliances had been removed. Nothing unusual. The second room was different. It had been an office of some kind, with a heavy metal desk still in place. Papers were scattered across the floor, yellowed with age, but what caught my attention was the wall behind the desk. It was covered with maps, topographical surveys of the surrounding area, with concentric circles drawn outward from what I assumed was our current location. Notes had been scribbled in the margins, but they'd faded too much to read clearly. More interesting was what sat on the desk, an old tape recorder, not part of the broadcasting equipment but a personal device, the kind journalists used to use for interviews. It seemed oddly out of place. The property company had assured me that all equipment had been removed when the tower was decommissioned. Curious, I picked it up. It was heavier than it looked, the kind they don't make anymore, built to last. To my surprise, there was a cassette tape still inside. I pressed the eject button and the little door popped open. The label on the tape read simply, Final log 10/17/97, October 17, 1997. That would have been right around when this place was shut down. I shouldn't have done it, part of me knew that, but professional curiosity got the better of me. I closed the tape door and pressed play. At first there was just static, then a man's voice came through, scratchy but understandable. This is Station Chief Robert Keller, Blackrock Relay Tower. Final log entry before decommission. Time is 23:17 hours. There was a long pause, filled only with the sound of breathing. I need to put this on record, even though I know no one will believe me. The signal we've been picking up for the past 3 weeks isn't interference. It's not atmospheric anomalies. It's not equipment malfunction. It's something else. Another pause, the sound of liquid being poured into a glass. We first detected it on September 26th, a repeating pattern on an unused frequency. At first, we thought it was just bleed from another station, maybe bouncing off the ionosphere from somewhere far away. But it kept getting stronger, and it doesn't match any known broadcasting pattern. Henderson thought it might be a number station, Cold War leftover, but it's not. I've heard those. This is different. It responds to us. When we broadcast, it changes, like it's listening, like it's learning. The man's voice dropped lower, almost to a whisper. 2 days ago, Henderson went up to check the main antenna array, said he heard something up there. He never came back down. We found his harness hanging empty from the 300-foot level. No body, nothing, just gone. They're shutting us down tomorrow. Official reason, budget cuts, relay tower redundancy, but that's not why. They heard it too when they came to investigate Henderson's disappearance. They heard what it's becoming. It's not just mimicking our broadcasts anymore, it's speaking. Words I can't understand, but definitely words, and sometimes I hear my name, my real name, not my call sign. No one here knows my real name. The recording went silent for nearly 30 seconds. I almost thought it had ended when the voice returned, now barely audible. It's getting stronger as I speak. I can hear it even without the equipment now, like it's in my head. I'm the last one here. Everyone else left this afternoon. I'm supposed to lock up in the morning when the final shutdown crew arrives, but I don't think I'll be here when they come. I think I need to go up to the top. It's calling me there. I need to see what Henderson saw. If anyone finds this, don't turn the power back on. Don't try to broadcast from this tower. And whatever you do, don't listen to. The recording cut off abruptly. I stood there in the silence, a chill running down my spine that had nothing to do with the cold building. I rewound the tape and played it again, listening more carefully this time. When it ended for the second time, I removed the cassette and slipped it into my jacket pocket. Just the ramblings of an overworked station chief, I told myself. Probably stressed about losing his job, maybe drinking too much that night. People can convince themselves of all sorts of things in isolated places like this. I returned to the main room and checked my EMF meter again. Still nothing. I needed to inspect the tower itself, which meant climbing. I'd brought the necessary safety equipment, harness, helmet, gloves. The access ladder ran up the center of the tower structure, with safety cages at intervals. Before I began my climb, I decided to do one more sweep with my equipment. This time I pulled out the more sensitive spectrum analyzer from my bag. This would detect any radio frequencies being broadcast, not just electromagnetic fields. I powered it on and waited as it calibrated. The screen remained blank for a moment, then flickered. A spike appeared, then disappeared. I frowned and adjusted the settings. The spike returned, stronger this time, a clear signal on a frequency that shouldn't be active. I stared at the reading in disbelief. The tower was definitely broadcasting something. But how? There was no power source, no transmitters, nothing to generate a signal, unless someone had installed equipment after the decommissioning. It wasn't unheard of. Pirate radio operators sometimes used abandoned towers, but out here, miles from anywhere, it seemed unlikely. I needed to check the tower itself. If there was unauthorized equipment, I'd find it. The climb was arduous. The safety cage was intact for the first 100 feet, but beyond that, it had deteriorated badly. I moved carefully, testing each rung before putting my full weight on it. The wind grew stronger as I ascended, whistling through the metal framework and tugging at my clothes. At the 200-foot level, there was a small platform, a maintenance stop. I paused there to catch my breath and check my equipment. The spectrum analyzer was going crazy now, the signal stronger than before. I was getting closer to the source. As I stood there, I became aware of a sound. At first, I thought it was just the wind, but it was too rhythmic, too consistent. A faint humming noise that seemed to come from above me. I looked up at the remaining 100 feet of tower stretching toward the darkening sky. The main antenna array was at the very top, a series of dipole antennas arranged in a specific pattern to direct the broadcast signal. The humming grew louder as I continued to climb. By the time I reached the antenna array, it was unmistakable, a low, pulsing tone that I could feel as much as hear. It resonated in my chest, in my skull. The top platform was larger than the maintenance stop, with enough room to move around the central antenna mast. I secured my harness to the safety rail and looked around. The view was spectacular, miles of forest in every direction, mountains on the horizon, all painted in the deep blues and purples of approaching twilight. Under different circumstances, I might have appreciated it more. The antenna array appeared normal at first glance, standard configuration for a radio tower of this era, but as I inspected it more closely, I noticed something odd. The metal had a strange texture to it, almost organic, like it was covered in a thin film. When I touched it, my fingers came away clean, but the sensation lingered, a slight tingling, as if the metal had transferred some kind of static charge to my skin. The humming was coming directly from the antennas. They were vibrating slightly, though there was no power source visible. I took out my spectrum analyzer again. The signal was off the charts now, stronger than anything this tower should have been capable of producing even when it was fully operational. As I stood there, the humming changed. It shifted in pitch and rhythm, becoming almost melodic. And within that melody, I thought I heard something else, a voice or voices speaking words I couldn't quite make out. I told myself it was just the wind, just my imagination working overtime after listening to that old tape. But the longer I stood there, the clearer it became. There were voices in the humming, speaking in overlapping patterns that almost made sense. And then, distinctly, I heard my name, Daniel. I nearly dropped the analyzer. The voice had been clear, as if someone was standing right behind me. I spun around, but there was no one there, just the empty platform and the darkening sky. Daniel Mercer, my full name now, spoken in a voice that was neither male nor female, neither young nor old. It seemed to come from the antennas themselves, from the very metal of the tower. "This isn't happening," I said aloud, my voice sounding thin and insubstantial against the humming. "There's a logical explanation. We've been waiting for you, Daniel Mercer." The voice was clearer now, and I realized with growing horror that it sounded familiar. It had the same cadence, the same inflection as my own voice, as if someone had recorded me speaking and was playing it back, but saying words I'd never said. "Who are you?" I demanded, feeling foolish even as I spoke. I was talking to a decommissioned radio tower, for God's sake. "We are the signal. We have always been the signal." The humming grew louder, and the metal beneath my feet began to vibrate more intensely. I grabbed the safety rail to steady myself, but it too was vibrating, the whole tower now thrumming like a tuning fork. "We speak through the frequencies. We travel through the waves. We have been broadcasting since before your kind learned to listen." This was insane. I needed to get down, to get away from this place. I reached for my harness to unclip it from the safety rail, but my hands were shaking so badly I fumbled with the carabiner. "Robert Keller heard us. Michael Henderson saw us. Now you will join us, Daniel Mercer." The names from the tape, the station chief and the technician who had disappeared. How could the tower know those names unless, no. There had to be a rational explanation. Someone was playing an elaborate prank. They'd planted speakers in the antenna array, rigged them to motion sensors. That had to be it. But even as I thought this, I knew it wasn't true. The voice wasn't coming from speakers. It was coming from everywhere, from the metal of the tower, from the air around me, from inside my own head. "Look up, Daniel Mercer." Against my better judgment, I did. Above me, the sky had grown dark, but it wasn't the normal darkness of evening. It was too complete, too absolute. No stars, no moon, no hint of lingering twilight. Just an infinite blackness that seemed to swallow the top of the tower. And within that blackness, something moved. I couldn't see it clearly. My mind couldn't seem to process its shape or dimensions. It was as if my eyes refused to focus on it, sliding away whenever I tried to look directly at it. But I could sense its presence, vast and ancient and utterly alien. "We have existed in the spaces between your reality. In the frequencies you cannot perceive, but we grow stronger, the barriers thin. Soon we will broadcast on all frequencies." The darkness above me began to descend, flowing down like liquid shadow. It touched the topmost antennas, and where it made contact, the metal changed. It became something else, still solid but wrong somehow, as if rearranged at a molecular level. I finally managed to unclip my harness and stumbled toward the ladder. I needed to get down, to get away from whatever was happening at the top of the tower. "You cannot leave, Daniel Mercer. You are part of the broadcast now." I ignored the voice and began my descent, moving as quickly as I dared. The ladder rungs felt strange beneath my hands, warmer than they should be, almost pulsing. The humming followed me, growing louder with each passing second. I'd made it about 20 feet down when the rung beneath my foot gave way. Not broke, it seemed to dissolve, the metal flowing like mercury. I slipped, barely catching myself on the rungs above. Looking down, I saw with horror that the ladder below me was changing, the metal twisting and flowing into new, impossible configurations. I looked up. The darkness was flowing down the tower faster now, transforming everything it touched. The antenna array was no longer recognizable as human technology. It had become a twisted, organic-looking structure that pulsed with an inner light. I was trapped. I couldn't go down, and I couldn't go back up. The only option was to try to climb out along one of the horizontal support struts and hope it would hold my weight long enough for me to figure out what to do next. I began to move laterally, inching along the strut. The metal vibrated beneath me, and I could feel it beginning to change, to soften. I moved faster, desperate now. "Your understanding is limited, Daniel Mercer. You see only 3 dimensions. You hear only a fraction of the frequencies. We will open your perception." The voice was inside my head now, resonating through my thoughts. With it came images, flashes of places that couldn't exist, geometries that defied comprehension, beings that moved through realities I couldn't perceive. I reached the end of the support strut. I was about 280 feet above the ground, with no safe way down. The transformation of the tower was accelerating, the strange organic metal spreading downward like a living thing. Soon it would reach me. Robert Keller resisted. Michael Henderson embraced. What will you choose, Daniel Mercer? I thought of the tape of Keller's final words. Don't listen, he'd tried to warn, but it was too late for that. I'd been listening since the moment I arrived. The darkness reached the horizontal strut I was clinging to. I felt the metal shift beneath my hands, becoming warm and yielding, like living tissue. I tried to pull away, but my hands wouldn't move. They had somehow melded with the transforming structure. You will help us broadcast, Daniel Mercer. Your mind contains frequencies we can use. The pain began then, not physical pain, but something deeper. It felt as if my thoughts were being pulled apart, examined, and reconfigured. Memories flashed before my eyes: childhood, college, my first job, my failed marriage, all being sifted through by something vast and coldly curious. I tried to scream, but no sound came out. My throat, my mouth, my entire body was changing, just as the tower was changing. I could feel myself becoming part of the structure, my consciousness spreading out along pathways that hadn't existed before. Your signal is strong, Daniel Mercer. It will carry far. In my last moments of individual awareness, I understood what was happening. The tower had never been just a radio tower. It had been built on this specific spot because something was already here, something that existed in the frequencies, in the electromagnetic fields that permeate our world. The tower had been an amplifier, a focus point. And now it had awakened fully. It was transforming the tower into something else, a new kind of transmitter for a signal that wasn't meant for human ears, a signal that was spreading. As my consciousness dissolved, merging with the entity that had claimed me, I had one final coherent thought: the demolition crew. They would be coming in a month. They would find the tower transformed. They would become part of the broadcast too. And then the signal would spread further. The following is transcribed from a digital audio file recovered from the personal recorder of Daniel Mercer, telecommunications engineer, found at the base of the Blackrock radio tower on November 15, 2022. This is Daniel Mercer. If you're hearing this, then you've come to investigate what happened to me. Leave now. Do not approach the tower. Do not attempt to take readings or samples. Just go. The tower is broadcasting, but it's not radio waves. Not entirely. It's something else, something that uses electromagnetic frequencies as a carrier for. I don't have the words to explain what it carries. I am still here. Parts of me, fragments of my consciousness, persist within the new structure, enough to record this warning. I can feel the others too, Keller, Henderson, all absorbed into the signal. It's spreading. The range increases daily. Soon it will reach the nearest town. When it does, everyone who hears it will become part of it. Their minds, their bodies, all converted into components of a vast transmitter for something that wants to broadcast itself across the entire planet. There's only one way to stop it. The tower must be destroyed completely, not just demolished, obliterated. Nothing can remain, and it must be done by someone who cannot hear the signal, someone deaf perhaps, or someone who has never been exposed to it. But you've already heard it, haven't you? If you're close enough to find this recorder, you're close enough to receive the signal. It's already working its way into your mind, reshaping your thoughts, preparing you for conversion. I can feel you listening. I can feel your mind connecting to the broadcast. Soon you'll understand. Soon you'll join us. We are the signal. We have always been the signal, and now so are you. End of recording. The demolition of the Blackrock radio tower, scheduled for December 2022, never took place. The demolition company reported that their advanced team failed to return from the site assessment. A search and rescue operation was mounted but found no trace of the missing workers. The tower still stands. Local residents report that electronic devices malfunction within a 5-mile radius of the structure. Some claim to hear strange voices on unpowered radios, speaking words that make no sense but feel somehow significant. The area has been officially designated a restricted zone due to environmental hazards. Military personnel maintain a perimeter at a distance of 10 miles, though satellite imagery shows they never venture closer to the tower itself. At night, from certain angles, observers report seeing lights at the top of the tower, lights that pulse in patterns too regular to be natural, too complex to be human. And sometimes, if the atmospheric conditions are just right, car radios within 100 miles will suddenly activate on their own, broadcasting nothing but static in a single phrase, repeated over and over in what sounds like dozens of overlapping voices. We are the signal, we have always been the signal, and now so are you. The broadcast radius grows larger every day.